Lesson 26, Section 1. In this presentation, we'll be covering some irregular third declension row stem nouns. That is, third declension nouns whose stems end in row. There are 4 important third declension row stem nouns that are highly irregular. Aner, andras, ha, man or husband, an important word obviously. Pater, patras, ha, father. Mater, metras, he, mother. And tugater, tugatras, he, daughter. Their irregularities have mostly to do with accentuation and the appearance or disappearance of some of these vowels, alpha, epsilon, eta. Now, all of these words have to do with people, obviously, and 3 of them have to do with familial relations. They're very common words, which is one of the reasons why we see such irregularity. It tends to be in languages that the more frequently something is used, the more chance that irregularities have to creep in. So let's take a look first at aner. We're going to, as with most third declension nouns, we're going to drop the os ending of the genitive singular to get our stem, and we're going to plug that in all of these places. We've got row there at the end of the stems. That's why this is considered a row stem noun. And we're going to start with adding our normal endings in all the different cases and the 2 different numbers. And we're going to go through some of the irregularities bit by bit. So the first one we've seen before, it's an irregularity in the nominative singular. We want to memorize this form when we memorize the word, so we don't have to know exactly how this irregularity works. The next irregularity we're going to see has to do with accentuation. In the accusative singular, we would expect the accent to be on the ultima, the final syllable, just as we see it in both the nominative and the genitive singular, actually. But we're going to see it on the penult instead. The next irregularity we're going to see is in the vocative, actually. We're going to have a unique vocative form, very different from any of the other ones. Its accentuation is different, its vowel is different. Aner. The next irregularity is that we're going to see the same thing that we saw in the accusative singular in the nominative plural. We're going to get a strange accentuation there. So not andres, but andres for men. Next, we're going to see an irregularity in the dative plural, and this is something we're going to see with all 4 of the nouns we're going to look at today. We're going to see an alpha creep in there. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to pronounce. We would have 3 consonants in a row. We see this alpha creep in to get andrasin in the dative plural. And finally, in the accusative plural, same thing as in the accusative singular and nominative plural, we get that strange accentuation. These are the forms for aner, andras, ha, man, or also husband. Let's look at one other one, and the other 2, mater and tugater, mother and daughter, actually follow the same pattern. So let's look at pater, patras, father. We're going to get our stem by dropping the os ending of the genitive singular and plugging it in to all of the different cases and number. And we're going to start with adding our normal endings, and then we'll go through the irregularities again one by one. So in the nominative singular, we've seen this before, pater. And the next irregularity we're going to see is actually in the accusative singular. It doesn't have to do with accentuation so much. We're going to see, probably for purposes of pronunciation, an epsilon creep in to the stem there. So we have really a different stem that we're dealing with. In the vocative, we also have an irregular form. It's pater, irregular both in its stem and its accentuation. And in the nominative plural and the genitive plural and the accusative plural, we're going to see the same thing we saw in the accusative singular here. We're going to see an epsilon sneak in there, another epsilon sneak in there. Dative plural, we're going to see that alpha that we saw in the previous case sneak in there, and then finally that epsilon there. So highly irregular, as you can see. The only things that we'd expect would be the genitive and dative singular. Everything else is irregular. Now, fortunately, the other two words we started with, Meter, mother, and Tugater, daughter, follow the same pattern. So we can just toss those in there and accentuate them all, the remaining forms, that is, and that gives us the declensions of these three nouns. You want to take a look at these forms in the grammar book. You want to mark that page. You'll probably be using it. Irregular third declension row stem nouns. Thank you very much.